What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another Dota 2 commentary brought to you by yours truly, B-Ballin. How are y'all doing today? And this is a match that I am eagerly anticipating. I specifically asked for a replay involving Zenith, and thank you to HA who got me a couple matches. This is from the Pro Dota 2 League in Asia, the Asian division, and this is a match between Zenith on the Rain side and MUFC on the Dire side. Now, Zenith is a very interesting team. I'm sure you've all heard by now that Loda has moved from CLG to Zenith. He moved to Singapore in order to be closer to his girlfriend, who I think is Kelly Milky's. And nonetheless, even though he just moved, both CLG and Zenith got invites to the International. So it appears that Loda is not going to be missing out too much. He's not going to be missing out the insane prize pool. And ever since Loda joined the team, Zenith has just been on a tear. They've been beating top Chinese teams. They've beaten DK, I think they beat eHome, they've beaten all sorts of teams that have been just doing so well in the Asian region. And the Pro Dota 2 League is really a great tournament for teams from all across the world to just show their mettle and just compete with each other for a pretty high prize pool. I think it's 20k for the Pro Division, 10k for the Amateur Division. I'm sure somebody will correct me if I am wrong, which I frequently am. But anyway, this is a match I'm eagerly anticipating, so let's get right into it. The picks and bans, let's go. Vegespirit and Enchantress are the first two bans by the Randy side, and meanwhile we have Panda and Chen. So already we can see two junglers being picked out right off the bat. Jungling is a pretty powerful way in Dota 2 at the moment just to get an early experience advantage over your opponent, and just get a lot of tower pushing, which is the more important thing. Dota 2 is still favoring a very, very pushing heavy metagame. So banning two of the strongest pushers in the games is not too surprising. Brewmaster being banned on the Dire side is also not very surprising. Brewmaster we see all the time in Dota 2 matches in both the Asian and in the European scene. His ultimate is just incredibly devastating in a team fight. And of course later on in the game it doesn't do too much because he can just kill the pandas, but in the early game till about 40 to 45 minutes in, it is just ridiculous. It's literally game breaking. Like when he activates it, your only choice for your team is to just run the heck out. And even then he can lock down several of your heroes at the same time. He can put somebody in a 6-second cyclone. He can get that 2-second boulder toss stun damage, which has a 7-second cooldown. It's pretty ridiculous. So Brewmaster getting the ban is not really too surprising. Meanwhile, we're going to see a Nature's Prophet on the side of Zenith. He's going to be banned, and I think at the moment Nature's Prophet, Chen, and Invoker are probably the two strongest heroes in the, or are the three strongest heroes in the Dota 2 metagame. In pubs, you don't really see Chen too much, but I can tell you that in pubs, Nature's Prophet and Invoker both just wreak havoc, and in pro games too, they just are ridiculous. Surprising to see that there is no Lycan ban at the moment, so maybe we're going to see a Lycan pick being transitioned, or I think Zenith at this point is just saying, alright, pick your poison. Either ban Lycanthrope and give us Invoker, or ban Invoker, give us Lycan. As we see the Lycanthrope being banned immediately, so Zenith is going to get a very, very strong opening pick. Let's see what they decide to go for. The conventional pick, of course, is go for that Invoker who's still ridiculously strong and can just do so much, whether it be ganking, teamfights, and even carrying in the late game, and just do a lot of DPS output. And even if it goes the Exhort build, the 450 damage pure Sunstrike is not to be underestimated. As you see, an immediate Invoker being picked up by HYHY, who is Loda in this game. A little bit of some friendly teasing going on. I'm not really too sure how familiar the Zenith and Loda were, but I know that Loda actually went to Singapore for a vacation a couple months ago, so I'm sure he met some of the Zenith people there, and I guess they entertained an offer. I don't think they really had a stable fifth, and getting one of the star players from the European scene, one of the well-known legends who's in his prime, I think he's only about 24 years old, and is still very, very useful. And of course, that there was some disputes between PyCat and Loda. I think Loda wanted to play some of the roles that PyCat was playing, and PyCat just being a better player and just, or not really being a better player, just fitting to CLG's roles more or better than Loda could at the moment. So I think Loda had a little bit of dispute there, but nonetheless, it doesn't matter. CLG has Misery and Lacoste, and Zenith now has Loda, and both teams are going to international, so it's really, really exciting to see. Meanwhile, MUFC, they've been playing with a pretty stable lineup for all this time. Sharky, Nick, Ling, TFG was too fucking good on the Dire side along with Net. So they've been playing with this lineup for a very, very long time. I forgot to introduce the last couple players on Zenith. Loda is HYHY, or Hi. Freedom is Freedom. Ice is Ice. And Pimp Carp, I think, is XY, who is the last member of Zenith's roster. So just talking more about the picks and bans, we're going to see a Windrunner and Crystal Main. Now Windrunner, I'm so annoyed with this heroes, guys. Like, this must be the most stable pick in Dota history, literally. Because she's been picked ever since they fixed up her shackle shot a bit about 2.5 years ago. She's been in literally every game. I think I searched back in GGNet specifically just for this reason to June 2010 was the last when she was still getting first picked and first banned, and I didn't check back too much further. I'm sure if I checked back further, she'd still be picked, but not really first picked and first banned. So I think they really need to do something to fix Shackle Shot. When you see a hero in the competitive scene for so very long, there's not really too much for variation. She can just do so many useful things, and Shackle Shot, although it might not be the best non-ultimate stun game, is surely most game-breaking in the late game. I mean, a double hex on two heroes for about 4 seconds is pretty ridiculous. Immediately being able to isolate two heroes and just locking them down and allowing for follow-up initiation. So, Ice Rock, bro, nerf this hero, please. Windrunner, I'm tired of seeing her face in these competitive matches. I know I was gripe upon this point, but seriously. Meanwhile, Crystal Main there to provide aura. Meanwhile, Crystal Mains have just been going for very interesting builds. I haven't been following the Asian Crystal Main build, but in the European Crystal Main build, we often see Arzart go for Auraless and just go the Max and Nukes. We see Aura strats as well. So Crystal Main, although she's not my favorite hero to play, she can definitely be very versatile. So we're going to see how much experience she gets and really how much of a factor she's going to be. And with the Earthshaker support pick, it's going to mean that Crystal Main's going to be able to get some items. So both of these heroes will be able to pick up wards, so Crystal Main won't be completely useless when it comes to the mid part of the game. Of course, as we approach the late game, then we're going to see Crystal Main is not really going to have too much of a factor. But having a Crystal Main get some items and not just buying all the wards, buying all the sentries, buying dust and gem, and things like that, it's going to be pretty useful in terms of keeping it relevant. Meanwhile, Earthshaker is one of those heroes, if he gets a Blink Dagger, he's alright. He's good to go for the rest of the game. He just needs that counter initiation. And what's really interesting by the Dyer's pick so far is that they had the Enigma being picked up by the Rain right off the bat. And so far, I think the Rain are doing a nice job in terms of recognizing, okay, MUFC, they like to go OD, they like to go anti-mage, so let's just ban out of the way. So right now, there's nothing that can really go through the BKB, a black hole for Enigma. There's no Roar, there's no Flaming Lasso, there's nothing like that. So let's see if MUFC decides to pick up a hero that goes through it. And now we see the Vengeful Spirit first ban come into play. Vengeful Spirit being the first ban, especially after two supports that we picked up, is, I mean, having that swap that gets rid of Enigma through the BKB black hole is going to be really, really useful. So, nice job banning by HYHY. First ban Vengeful Spirit. We don't see that very often, but in this case it definitely works out. Meanwhile, we're going to see a Brood and Queen of Pain ban on the Dire portion. And right now, just noticing Rain synergy, I mean, you can see that. Darkseer is an insanely popular hero. I mean, he sort of fell out a little bit of favor, but he's sort of surged back and surged. Do you see what I did there? Oh, dang, I'm so clever. I'm feeling myself. That sounds so wrong. If you don't know some other fighting game terminology, you know, the players often say, yo, I'm feeling myself. This guy's feeling himself after he's done something really fun. But in Dota, it's not really a term you hear very often, so my bad, guys. So, Darkseer, he has a lot of synergy with these picks. We're going to see Vacuum into Black Hole combine a lot with the AoE madness that Invoking Dish out. And we're going to see a Dazzle being picked up. Dazzle is a hero that I've actually seen in the past couple of Dota 2 matches, which is quite odd. I mean, Dazzle is a hero who I think is probably the best late game support in the game, next to like Vengeful Spirit as well. Vengeful Spirit, of course, is infinitely more useful early on because Dazzle just needs so much experience. So we're going to see how they decide to lane this Dazzle. If he's going to go pure support, if they're going to put Darkseer in the jungle and have Dazzle be in a dual lane where he can get a bit more experience, or if they're going to try lane to help out their carry. But we're going to see the Morphling being picked up on the MUFC side. MUFC going for a bit more late game. They have a lot of disables. They have a very, very strong hard carry in the form of the Morphling. And just having the Morphling being able to shotgun anybody. Dazzle's a hero who is pretty squishy, although he does have the Grave. And it tends to not build too very tanky unless it goes for the Mecha or BKB right off the bat. So Morphling, if he does go for the Shotgun Ethereal Blade build, he will have a lot of success in terms of picking down these low HP heroes and just wreaking havoc. And even if he doesn't, Morphling without the Shotgun build can still be a devastating force. I think Luminous said that Morphling is one of the most annoying heroes. He's sort of like a lesser version of a Prophet in late game. He can just push down all the towers with his Manta illusions and always be there for the team fights, even if they break out, even if they are more frequent than a Spectre with our Haunt. She can just push down. He can just push down creep waves faster with Waveform, and if he keeps a replicate with his team, he'll just have an immense advantage. And the team with the Morphling, especially on the Dire side, they're always going to have a Roshan advantage just because he's going to be able to push the lane and always keep a replicate with his team, so they'll be able to break out into a fight whenever they want. HY going for a bit more of a mid-game lineup. He picked up Mirana for the last pick. Mirana is a hero that we've sort of been fading out recently in the European scene, so I'm not really too sure how Zenith plans to utilize this Mirana. All these heroes on the Radiant side need so much experience, so the lanes are really going to be what's crucial in this game. Fortunately, they all have pretty good early game skills. There's a lot of disables on their side, and they deal pretty good physical and magical DPS. Of course, Dazzle, his Shadow Wave, his physical DPS, Weave will just give him immense amount. I mean, all the magical damage by all the other heroes is just going to be tremendous in terms of picking out heroes. And if they ever get a Wombo combo with the Vacuum into the Black Hole, with the Meteor, EMP, things like that, it's just going to be death to at least 3 to 4 of the heroes on the range side. Morphling, of course, builds a bit more tanky, but Earthshaker, he really needs to get that Blink Dagger, he needs to get some mana M's, he doesn't really build tanky. And we're going to see a Tiny pickup. So already we're going to see some very interesting picks. Dazzle on the Radiant, Tiny on the Dire. I'm pretty excited for this. Now, Tiny is a hero we often seen in the Filipino Dota 1 scene. I haven't seen Tiny be too present in the Dota 2 scene, which is why we see him as the last pick. You could use the surprise, but you know, when Tiny picks up the Blink Dagger, he can just go on a killing rampage and kill supports very, very easily. Just get a rune with the bottle, kill support with the Blink Dagger Avalanche toss. He'll be really useful in terms of isolating Dazzle and just shutting him down. And the longer you leave Dazzle alive, the more trouble your team is going to be in. So I like this Tiny pick in terms of just isolating a key hero. And if MUFC want to go for a ganking strat, which is what they are clearly going for, not really going for some counter push AoE, even though they do have a lot of counter push AoE on their side, they're going to go for a more aggressive ganking strategy to protect the Morphling while he just farms up by himself. And even then, he can keep a rough kit with his team so he can join in the ganks anytime he wants. Meanwhile, it's clear that Radiant is going for the mass teamfight lineup, so we're just going to see the pause, and we're going to get right into the game. So we'll introduce the players and the teams. So on the Scourge, we're going to see Ice playing the Invoker. Now Ice on the Ice, who plays on Orange. Yes, on Orange is the support player, but Ice is very versatile. One of Malaysia's superstars, original superstars, along with Yamate and Mushi. So Ice playing the Invoker, not too uncommon. We're going to see HY playing the Mirana. We're going to see Freedom playing the Dazzle. Loda playing the Darkseer. XY playing the Enigma. I would have expected maybe Loda to play the Invoker or the Dazzle because he's a very competent solo player. But it looks like they're not going to actually solo the Dazzle with this lineup. I don't really know what role Loda plays in these Zenith games, but he's not going to do that. He's not going to play the primary support because Dazzle looks like he's going to be there. Meanwhile, Enigma is going to be played by XY, who was actually Magic Pone, or Ponacarp, or whatever. Ling is going to be playing the Crystal Main. TFG, the notorious puck player from MUFC, is going to play the Tiny. Net is going to be playing the Earthshaker, Sharky is going to play the Windrunner, and Nick is going to be playing the Morphling. MUFC really, really likes the Morphling pick, and Morphling has been a hero who's been trending very, very hard lately. He is one of those carries who's just so very versatile in terms of what he can do. And like most of the popular carries, he can tank. He can tank like no other. I think in the metagame at this point, when you go for a hard carry, you really need to make sure that he's survivable, he can tank, or he can, be there, provide some sort of presence in the early game team fights if he doesn't get his big item very, very quickly. And Morphling doesn't tend to get his big items very, very quickly, but he has so many escape mechanisms through the Morph, through the Replicate, through the Waveform. He's not completely useless. He can TP in, get a 360 damage AoE Morph Waveform off on the opponent. Sorry, 330, my bad. And he can just do a lot of damage. Of course, him having 1 base armor and very low move speed doesn't help him out. But once you get to the late game, that won't matter whatsoever. Morphling is just a really, really devastating carry. So it's really going to be up to Zenith to push very early or just take very early team fights. And unfortunately for Zenith, they do not have a pushing lineup. Of course, the Darkseer can push down creep waves extremely quickly with the Ion Shell, especially combined with the Dazzle Shadow Wave, just healing up the creeps and damaging. And keep in mind that Shadow Wave, if your creeps have like lost 100 HP each or 120 HP, and there's an opposing hero right next to it, and you just throw on a Shadow Wave and it hits all of your creeps, it's gonna do 500 physical damage, which is pretty ridiculous early on. And there are two melee heroes on the dire side, so they're gonna have to watch out for the early game burst damage that is in the form of the Shadow Wave. Meanwhile, Invoker, of course, is a hero who's really, really powerful, really, really strong. But he's a hero who sort of needs a lot of time to keep going. Unlike sort of Prophet, who can just do anything at once, Winner, who can just sort of be there and just, have an immediate impact. Invoker needs a little bit of time, needs those levels, needs at least level 12 in order to be truly, truly have an impact on the game. But he's a very strong laner, he can gank, he can move very quickly. It's going to be really interesting to see what build he goes for, if he goes for the standard Quas Wix, or if he goes for the Exor build. So we're going to just see, judging by the items, how these teams are going to be laning it. Enigma picks up 4 Clarities and 3 Tangos. Looks like he's going to go for a very fast Soul Ring, so he's going to go for the jungle Enigma. Looks like he's not going to go for the long lane Soul Enigma. We're going to see Loda soloing that top lane. He already has the Observer Wards along with the Soul Ring. I think the Observer Wards were passed to him. 125. No, looks like he picked up the Observers himself, so he's going to be blocking the pull camp, so he won't be able to be isolated as well, and looks like Enigma is just going to be there to deny the first creep and help push the lane out a little bit more. But we sometimes see Enigma just go for the support dual lane build as well, although since he has a lot of clarities and he does have a very fast Soul Ring, he's going to be going to the jungle, just because if he's going to do this more supportive thing, he's not going to get much farm at all, so expect to see him in the jungle. Meanwhile, we're going to see HY going in for the dual lane along with the Dazzle. So Dazzle's going to get a lot of experience early on. Not really something you expect when he goes into the tri lane, and you really need a lot of experience on Dazzle. I mean, his Poison Touch only gets truly effective until level 3. He picks up 1 level in Grave. I mean, maybe you notice that, okay, there are 5 heroes here. If Potom gets in trouble, I can Shallow Grave. Potom did not use any skill points, but looks like MUFC is just going to back off. And they're going to put the Trident up top with the Crystal Main, Rolling Earthshaker, Tiny in mid, and Winner soloing the long lane. So it looks like Potom and Dazzle should have a relatively decent time against some Winner. Earthshaker is actually going to go for the top lane. He's going to probably roam out and help the bottom lane if the tower gets pushed too heavily, and we're going to see a lot of wards. This is going to block the pull spot nicely for the Dire, and they're going to block this spot as well, and it reveals the ward as well, so already shutting down a couple of Enigma's jungle opportunities. But nice job by Dazzle, clearly just placing that sentry ward, and he knows that there are a lot of heroes in the jungle, so nice countering by Freedom already is going to be really useful, but I don't know if he's going to see this ward as well. No, it looks like that ward is just going to be there to block that one creep camp. Going to slow down Enigma's jungling by a little bit, but he still has 4 other camps to just wreak havoc on and devastate the neutrals. Meanwhile, Ling is going to come in for surprise, happy times against Darkseer, but no, his invisibility rune just expires, and he's just going to be there. Alright, stare at Loda menacingly. Meanwhile, Crystal Main's just going to do some pulls. I think one of the wards was a D-ward as well. Let's just check out the sentries on the Crystal Main as well. Yes, no, she hasn't used any sentries, so it looks like Loda didn't put any sort of counter wards up for the pull spot. He's going to have a bit of a tough time in terms of blocking that pull spot and limiting the amount of experience that he can get, and the amount of experience that Crystal Main can get as well. So Morphing should have a relatively easy time in this lane with the backup of the Crystal Main and the Earthshaker, and Darksphere not blocked that pull spot is not going to have too much fun in terms of getting experience himself. He's pretty survivable. He has 1 level in the Surge already, and he's already level 2.5, so he's not going to have too hard of a time, but he's not going to be able to get too much farm, which is really a pretty difficult thing. Darkseer is a hero you want to get a lot of farm and items on. I mean, he's a hero who can just sort of recover from anything. He's sort of like Shadow Fiend and Necrolite when they were really popular. You can just always get the farm whenever you want and just pick that up. Darkseer, of course, with the Ion Shell. If he can stack those creeps and pop a Songa to see early on, he can just easily get a lot of farm if he needs to get fast farm. Meanwhile, MUFC TFG is going to have a bit of a tough time against the Exort build going on by Ice. So Exort Invoker by Ice, he's not going to be too useful in terms of early game ganks, so he's just going to go for a bit of late game. So Invoker is going for a carry build. Pretty interesting, and he's also going to have a lot of map control with that Sunstrike. So Ice going for this Exort build, going to give him a lot of lane presence, although not going to be too useful in terms of counter ganking or helping out his teammates. He's not going to have the insanely long range of that Tornado to help him out in the ganks. Meanwhile, TFG is going to have a miserable time against Invoker. He's just going to try to save as much money as possible. Did he already pick up the bottle? He did. And looks like, yeah, he did not spend all of his starting gold, so he was able to spam a couple of avalanches, get that bottle, and with the avalanche and toss, he should be able to rune control quite effectively. He has this ward at the very least in order to spot the rune, and this sentry ward being placed by the rain side is not going to see that at all. Meanwhile, there's going to be a little bit of engagement. No, just Earthshaker just being ever so menacing with the giant totem ushering him. I mean, if you were a Darkseer, you would not get... You do not want to be anywhere near that totem in more ways than one. It's just... It's very wrong. And it looks like a little bit of a sloppy job in terms of controlling the creep equilibrium, or just Loda getting some denies off. But Loda's going to have a couple levels and a bit of free farm. He did not last hit too much of that, but he does have Song, so he can spam that Iron Shell to his heart's content, so it would be a little bit more safe in this lane. Of course, if you chain the sails perfectly, you have the insanely long range of the Fissure, along with the Nova doing a decent amount of burst damage, and Frostbite holding the Darkseer in place if he does pop that Surge. And you have the Waveform, which is pretty long range themselves. So in terms of initiation in the lane, MUFC have a lot of things in order to kill this Darkseer, but Morphling not going to get too much farm with the waves constantly being pushed. So I guess this is a pretty good strategy. If he just pushes his lane very hard, then his creeps will just die fast at the tower. But now it looks like MUFC, they're going to start to put on the lane control and just try to get Nick as much farm as possible. Has the early Ring of Basilisk, going to go for Ring of Aquila. And let's see what build he decides to go for. Morphing is one of those heroes can just go insane number of builds. You can go for very early Meta style, but you can go for the trademarked Chinese build in Dota 1 around 7069C, which is bottle into Scotty, basically, or bottle into BKB into Scotty. But more likely we're going to see the traditional Lincoln Sphere buy, which is very popular on Morphling, just going to give him a lot of mana regeneration to play around with. And he can spam Wave Farm to clear creeps even more effectively. And Nick is not actually last hitting every single creep like he should in the first place. Meanwhile, there's going to be a gank on the bot lane. So while I was talking about Morphling last thing, we see Windrunner dying. Dazzle picked up 2 points of the Poison Touch, going to give him 33 to 66% slow for about 2 seconds. Pretty useful. And Windrunner dying very early on, and Moran just getting pretty much absolute free farm is going to be pretty powerful. And unfortunately that ward did not scout that because it didn't see too much into the jungle. So meanwhile there's going to be a bit of gank. Let's see, Ice unfortunately gets trapped on the wrong side of the fissure, unfortunate for MUFC. So the counter gank that Zenith pulled into place was not too effective. And actually, you know what? Just because I can, I'm going to go back to that first blood. Just because it is Dota 2, and I can do that now. Let's see. So, here we see Sharky. He's just chilling out. We see the Jaws incoming theme track. Just because I know all of you love to see how first blood happens. And yeah, we can see that it hasn't happened yet because at that point, Dazzle had put 1 point to his Shadow Wave. So yeah, just waiting for the inevitable. Enigma is probably going to come in for a counter gank very soon. I mean, the runes or the text is not cleared, which is a little bit annoying. So maybe Dota 2 can put that in, put in a text clearing chat, and we'll see how that goes. But yeah, Windrunner just buying her time, has 2 points in the power shot, going to help her clear the waves, 1 point in the Windrun. Pretty standard Windrunner build. You don't want to get too many points of Windrunner early on. I mean, you just really want to get a high-level Shackle Shot very fast. And looks like a nigga is starting to circle around. They're going to start their descent into Terror. And now Windrunner pops a Windrun. No, just ran away pretty early on. Arrow combined with the Chain Stun and the Sunstrike missed, but the physical attacks along with the Dazzle Poison Touch are doing enough physical damage to bring it down. So that's going to be into that. And that's probably going to be the last time I'll go back in this replay. I just wanted to see how the first blood exactly happened, because Enigma actually did not circle around to get that. It was actually a whiffed Sunstrike into death. Or maybe that Sunstrike actually hit. I'm not really too sure at the moment. But now we're going to see Ice going to get ganked. Unfortunately, the Fissure traps him on the wrong side, and Ice is going to live to see another day. Unfortunately for him, he does not have that Quas regen, which gives him very strong HP regen, but he does pop Salve. And now he's going to go on the offensive for TFG. TFG taking so much damage, going to pop a bottle charge and get back to relatively full HP. Put 1 point to Grow, give him a bit more Wusi to get to those runes faster, and going to give his toss damage even more of an added bonus. So overall, I mean, since Nick isn't farming absolutely perfectly, he does have 30 CS, so scratch that. He's farming better than anybody else in the game. I mean, the Invoker player Ice has the next highest. So even though I saw Nick miss a couple last hits, he's clearly just doing that is clearly just an aberration, as he's just been dominating the lane on top, which you should expect against a solo Darkseer when you have the support of a Crystal Main and the Earthshaker. And Earthshaker is still just level 2 this early on. One of the problems in these situations where you have two supports like Crystal Main and Earthshaker who are not getting experience, they're just going to be extremely squishy. They're not going to get too many items whatsoever early on. And right now it looks like they're just going to give some more levels to the Crystal Main rather than the Earthshaker. She's going to do some pulling, and I agree with this choice. I mean, early on, Crystal Main spell is more spammable. Frostbite is a pretty good spell, and having a decent level of that aura, as we see some double pull action going to go on. Having a pretty nice level of that aura will help that Morphling spam that wave farm, and he'll be able to escape from sticky situations if he comes to that. As Ring of Health immediately picked up by the Morphling, he morphed his damage into agility. He's already put 3 points in morph, 3 points in wave farm, going to give him some more agility, enabling last hitting even easier. Meanwhile, Winner has, fortunately for her, the creep wave was pushed to her tower, so she is level 6, 7 minutes in the game. Not the best creep equilibrium control by the rating side. Dazzle's level 5, not much gold whatsoever, and he just only has a salve, but all he needs is really levels, as we see a gank going on TFG. XY came in for the support as Invoker picked up the last hit as I missed another kill. Man, I'm pretty sloppy today, not gonna lie. Guys, step it up. Let's go, B-Bomb. Step up your game. Gotta stop babbling about boring stuff like, levels and items. Gotta just look at the action and the kills. But looks like Poison Touch is gonna go on MUFC. Sharky dodges the arrow nicely, and he should be able to escape. Windrunner doing a nice job in terms of avoiding all the physical damage. And meanwhile, Morphing is gonna do a bit of tower diving. No, XY is gonna come in to support the Windrunner and the Darkseer, and a TP in from the bot lane. Looks like the Darkseer should be just fine right now, and Tiny comes in for the gank. I don't know if he's been spotted. He might have been spotted at this point because Dazzle and Mirage are just staying the heck back. Yes, he was certainly spotted, and now Tiny's just going to waste a little bit of time, and every moment where Tiny's not getting kill or farming up for a very fast Blink Dagger, he becomes even more and more irrelevant. Unless you go for the patented Karoke Tiny build, which is just hard carry with the Aghanim Scepter, Mask of Madness, AC, all that jazz. It's pretty insane. So Tiny's going to go back to the mid lane. Earthshaker took that time while Tiny was there to pick up some experience. Level 3, a little bit more till he's halfway to level 4. Meanwhile, Windrunner doing a nice job just checking out the creep stats early on. Windrunner does have 34 CS, so she's farming reasonably well, and that's the problem of facing a dual lane rather than a tri lane. You're going to be able to get into experience, and especially with Dazzle, who doesn't really get his full disabling capacity until he hits level 5, which he does have that level 3 poison touch, so Windrunner will be stunned for a second. Meanwhile, Net might throw out on Fisher. No, that's going to be in that engagement. Malphite being thrown out. Looks like the Zenith side wants to get a bit of a tower push going. He summoned the conversions, but immediately nuked down by the Fissure and the Avalanche. And Tiny, of course, has that regen, so he can just spam it to his heart's content. So that push immediately thwarted, so Zenith not accomplishing too much. And as the game goes longer and longer, I mean, not too much action, only 2 kills in the first 9 minutes. But as the game goes longer and longer, the team with the Morphling clearly has a favor. Of course, against Enigma, when you have nothing that goes through BKB, Black Gold just becomes such a game-deciding factor. It's going to really come down to how well this Enigma player lands his Black Golds, and XY is certainly a caliber player who can land those effectively. Meanwhile, they might go for a gank on Darkseer. Loda immediately just backs away, ran to the left side, so he would be as far away from the Fissure as possible. So nice positioning by Loda. HY picked up the early strength treads. Not going for the standard, or not really standard, but sometimes we see Potom, because she feels like she doesn't have enough early game DPS, go for phase boots so she gets more mobility, and I think she really gets it for the plus 26 damage, which is so crucial. But she goes for strength heads, giving her more mana to play around. It's going to give her some more attack speed as well. And if she goes for the hard carry as well, then that attack speed will become extremely relevant in late game. And unfortunately, no, that is a dire ward, so TFG is going to, with the Avalanche, a little bit unfortunate for him. He does have Bottle fully stocked, so that Avalanche won't cost him too much. But the rune is going to be taken, and just a little bit of positioning. They clearly expect some sort of mid lane push to happen once again, as Earthshaker and Crystal Main are going to be maneuvering the position. But most likely they realize, okay, Morphing's not going to get ganked. He's already has a Perseverance and a Basilius ring. He already has full mana on that waveform as he just uses one to clear some creep waves. We don't really need to stay in lane to help him anymore. As Malphus is going to be popped, let's see if THE, he's going to get, nope, the Sunstrike actually whiffs. Tosh is doing a lot of damage, a Meteor just lands right on top of TFG. Avalanche doing a lot of damage, let's see if Zenith XY, he does take the fall. Fissure damage picking up the kill, so a little bit of a misplayed Sunstrike as the Avalanche just did barely enough damage to do some residual backlash to the Enigma player. So a little bit of unfortunate timing for Ice, but 3-1 for Zenith. And, they're doing a pretty good job. They haven't pushed down any towers. They're clearly more of a mid-game team. But unfortunately, they haven't done anything to address the morphing problem, although they are doing a nice job in terms of getting their heroes levels. Dazzle level 6, Mirana level 8, as we're going to see a bit of a pause. Loda level 7, as he had a pretty difficult lane on, but having that level 7, Darkseer having a numerous number of escape mechanisms, vacuuming, surging, and just being innately tanky, 834 HP, even with the Soul Ring. Ice level 9 as well, so he's going to get that level 12 pretty quickly. As I was going to see extremely uncommon Invoker build. I have actually not seen this Invoker build before. Strength Treads into Urn of Shadows. Now, Urn of Shadows in this case, if he's involved in a lot of kills, I mean, you're not going to have a lot of quasi-gen, so the Urn charges always will be welcome in terms of healing up. And maybe they're not going to plan on getting a mechanism very early on for their teammates, so those Urn charges will do a nice job in terms of healing up. Urn also gives you some decent amount of mana regen through that Soul Mask. And of course, that extra strength, you can already see that Invoker has 1200 HP, by far the tankiest hero in the game for his team. So going for a bit more of a tanky Invoker with that strength trade. So very interesting way, just going to try to survive as long as possible. And like I said earlier, one of the trademarks in being a hard carry is either to do an insane amount of damage or get a very fast tier 4 item pretty quickly like a bear and just push down, and he's already innately tanky. Or just having a lot of survivability, and Invoker is clearly going for the survivability route rather than raw damage or raw mana regen or raw utility. And I like this build. I'm not really too sure if Urn into Treads is the best build to go for, as you're going to see Loda being pressured by Nick. He casts a vacuum and he might be in a little trouble. Waveform going to be casted as well. Loda caught out a little bit out of position right there. I guess he was at 534 HP, and I think before that, meanwhile, Ice is going to get ganked upon. Let's see if he can invoke the Ghost Walk. He pops the Urn, and he's going to be able to survive a little bit longer. And unfortunately, the amount of damage, Earthshaker, level 5, the Fissure not doing enough damage to kill the Invoker. Invoker having that 1200 HP going to be really useful. So, already we're going to see the merits of this tanky Invoker take place. And just to go back to my points earlier, one of the things I always harp on with Invoker is, since he's a hero who gets so much farm, I think they just go for standard utility items too often. I mean, when we see Invoker solo lane for about 15 to 20 minutes and just hit level 15 very fast, we often see the drums, 4-staff, heals, things like that. Nothing really too game-breaking like a Hex or an early Aghanims or things like that. And it certainly has its uses. I mean, just getting movement speed through the Drums of Endurance and just getting the movement speed through the Yule Scepter, gonna give him a lot of utility. But when you give so much early farm to a hero that early on, then you're going to be in trouble. As Cold Snap Meteor going to be dropped in. HY coming in for the gank. Arrow manages to hit as the Earthshaker stun only hits Ice. As HY doing a nice gank, picking up a kill very early on, 4-2 in favor of Zenith. Fissure doing a nice job in terms of blocking HY. Leap is on cooldown. But unfortunately, Earthshaker did not have enough mana at that point. He's just going to whiff the power shot. Fissure going to be casted as well. HY is going to retreat to a safe distance. Going to bottle up and switching his treads to agility. Recognizes he's been watching Dota Weekly show. He's watching Loomis's public service announcements through that, and I really like this choice. I mean, at a certain point, Potom, until she gets some early damage, she is just a strong ganker at this early on game when heroes are not too tanky, when you have a lot of chain stuns being casted very on. So those arrows and Cold Snap combinations become really useful. And more importantly, Dazzle is a hero who just needs so much experience. And when he does get the experience, he just becomes so dangerous. Meanwhile, just checking out the early gold graph. Only about 2k gold difference in advantage for the Radiant. And even though no towers are taken, they do have 2 more hero kills. So actually, it looks like Rain are out-farming the Dire quite heavily. Only 2 more hero kills, which is about 500 gold. And you'll see, recognize, okay, Morphing's farming pretty well, but other than that, we're not really doing too much in lanes. Let's try to get a gank off. They're going to try to advance through that. The Dire Ward not going to be there to spot it. Looks like they're going to pick off XY very easily. Going to immediately get the Avalanche Toss combination. The Sunstrike misses once more, but Ice managed to kill the Earthshaker easily again with the help of those Forge Spirits. gonna do a nice job in terms of doing a lot of early game DPS. So Ice, pretty tanky, has those forward spirits which become so dangerous early on in the game. He's just gonna have a pretty good time for the rest of the game in terms of surviving gank and just being useful to his team in terms of counter ganking. Already, Invoker's reaching that magical level 12 very, very quickly. He has a couple of earn charges to his name. Let's see what he goes for right off the bat. No, it looks like Invisibility Rune popped. Yeah, I think he recognizes, alright, Invoker is way too tanky. I have to try to go for the Dazzle, but Dazzle, knowing that something's up, he's just going to teleport out. Going to teleport to the top lane to help out Loda, his buddy. Maybe provide a little bit more pressure against Nick, the Morphling player. Meanwhile, Ling picks up Dust and Boots. Dust going to be used to scout the Invoker. Moonlight Shadow as well being popped. To what purpose? I'm not too sure. It looks like Sharkme might be in a little bit of trouble. Malphite is just barely in range to be casted. Sunstrike gonna whiff again. These Sunstrikers have not been hitting, but looks like they're gonna pick off Sharky nonetheless. A couple more hits. No, Sharky lives barely on literally 10 HP, and now HY trying to be in a lot of trouble. Fissure gonna be able to cast him, and Crystal Main with a couple of auto attacks will be able to pick up the kill. And we saw teleport in by Morphling. Let's see if HY can get the escape. Nova going to be casted as well. Leap almost up. Can he leap out? Can he suicide to Roshan? Oh, Leap is just barely almost up. Oh, this might be very close. Oh, HY escapes in nick of time, and the fissure whiffs. The teleportation was not cancelled. My hand is over my face. Bit unfortunate. Just misjudged the fissure time. Meanwhile, Tiny is taking a boatload damage to the Forge Spirits. Urn casted as well. And if they can get a poison touch on him, and the Urn just doing a lot of work. Meanwhile, the poison touch doing a lot of damage, but they're not going to go after the Windrunner anymore. So Nick doing a nice job in terms of grabbing TP Scroll, and that burst damage very early on in the form of the waveform is just so useful in terms of early game ganks. And that's why I believe Morphling one of the best or most versatile heroes, just because he's pretty relevant in the early game. I mean, waveform is not a skill that you need to take lightly, and he's pretty survivable with the morph. If he gets a replicate up, he's pretty good. It's not like a Spectre where Spectral Dagger does nearly nothing, and he can only really be used for a Haunt. And Bear, which he doesn't have nearly the mobility, and he only gets truly effective once he picks up a big item. Meanwhile, Loda and XY going to be maneuvering the position. XY picking up a headdress, going to go for that mechanism, which is becoming pretty standard for the Enigma players these days. And Loda going to be able to finish off his Hood of Defiance very, very quickly. So a lot of the burst damage coming in from the dire side, it's going to be negated through that Hood of Defiance. That it will eventually be built into pipe. And this just dissuades Morphling from going for the shotgun build even more. I mean, when you have a very early pipe like Loda's probably going to get, it's not going to be very early, but it's going to be early enough. Tiny is not going to be too relevant. The shotgun build of the Morphling is not going to be too much. As let's just try to find Tiny for a second. Tiny's also been dying, and yeah, you can see he has nowhere close to the Blink Dagger, so Tiny's just not proving to be too successful in any of these ganks. Invoker's mid-lane partner went for a very, very unconventional, but a very smart build, just analyzing the game situation. Realizes, okay, I'm up against Tiny, what should I do? Should I stay squishy? I mean, if I go squishy and highly mobile, I'm going to die in one shot anyway through that, through the Avalanche Toss combination as the arrow hits on Nick, but he's just going to survive. So Ice did a nice job in terms of recognizing, alright, I'm against the Tiny, he does insane burst damage in the blink of an eye, let's go tank, so he's just completely dissuaded from getting me whatsoever. And if he does the initiate on me, I'll be able to survive long enough for my allies to TP in and help me out. Meanwhile, this tower is going to be pushed quite heavily. 4 heroes there, along with the Eidolon conversions. Meanwhile, 2 heroes doing a nice job in terms of holding their own. Lugan Sphere up in about 500 gold, or rather 400 gold for the Morphling, and looks like a smoke reinforcement's going to come in. Let's see if Rain's going to back out. No, they're going to pop the Moonlight Shadow, try to go for some initiation. Palm just leaps out, so that Sentry Ward is not going to spot. No, they just use the Moonlight Shadow to escape. Maybe sensing some sort of smoke gank. They had no ward giving them vision. But meanwhile, all the while, Invoker is just continuing the farm, picks up very early Ultimate Orb, so he's going to go for an extremely early Hex. And Invoker, when you give him so much farm, and he gets pretty tanky, with an early Hex, he can just do wonders. Mana regen is so crucial for Invoker, especially with this extremely mana-intensive Exort build. Meanwhile, only 1 point in the Wex, give him a little bit of move speed, and most importantly, just give him enough mana to cast that Ghost Walk if he feels like he's in a little bit of trouble. Wall Evolution casted as well, going to dissuade the Dire from pushing in a little bit. And those Wall Illusions, they do hurt, even though they're pretty easy to kill. They do 90% damage, or 70% damage at level 1, 80 at level 2, 90 at level 3. 140 pick up the Aghanim Scepter, so they do hurt, and that was a nice job in terms of stalling for about 15 seconds, which is the wall duration at level 1. Yep, 15, 30, 45. I know my Darkseer, man. Darkseer, one of my favorite heroes, as Ice is just going to be in a huge amount of trouble. Gets whacked by Tiny, but he managed to pick up a kill on the Earthshaker nonetheless, as his Forge Spear is being tossed angrily to avenge the Earthshaker. And Tiny, somehow out of nowhere, just managed to pick up a 1k gold in the bank, as a Shackle Shot, unfortunately, not doing enough to save Nick. So Nick's Lincoln Sphere is going to be delayed even longer. So in terms of that trade, I mean, killing Invoker for the Earthshaker Morphling clearly favoring the side of Zenith, and they have the hero kill advantage. They're going to be able to pick up a tower while defending their own top tower. So nice positioning and nice intense play by Zenith in order to get themselves a nice advantage. And Demon Edge being the first item for Potom, going for all-out raw damage rather than relying on phase boost damage. Let's get a Demon Edge. Fuck it. Why not? So Demon Edge probably going to go for that MKB, gonna give him a lot of DPS, give him some attack speed, gonna give him that chance to proc that mini bash. So very early MKB going for pure glass cannon Potom, only really as it tries to help him out and the match go on. So glass cannon Potom, I mean, you already have the Invoker who's gonna tank for you, you have the Darkseer who's gonna tank for you, and you have Dazzle who can pretty much focus all his energy in terms of healing you. Dazzle is going for that very, very support heavy. But unlike other support Dazzle, he is level 8, so he's not completely irrelevant. Put 2 points in the grave, recognizing, okay, I don't really need to max Poison Touch at this point. It's going to get its full slow and stun duration off anyway, and it'll just do a little bit more physical damage. Meanwhile, let's get a longer casting range on Grave. I mean, when you think about 400 range for the level 1 Grave, it's pretty shitty. Like, 400 range is about from Morphling to this range creep, so your Dazzle literally has to be like pretty close in order to grave his opponent. Meanwhile, when you get to that level 2 grave, it goes up to 600 range, gonna give a little bit more room for Dazzle to save his allies. But Tiny's getting ever so close to that Blink Dagger. Let's see how they utilize this Blink Dagger Tiny. They're gonna try to do a bit more of a push on the top lane. Loda does have that Hooded Defiance, probably gonna go for a pipe as well. He has an Ironwood branch, so maybe he's gonna go for actually the Magic Wand into the pipe. And like I said, a pipe this early on is going to be truly important in terms of stopping Tiny, who is such a momentum-based hero if he doesn't go for the late game. I mean, Tiny, if he goes on a rampage, he's really difficult to stop. But if he doesn't do that, then he's not too useful. He has pretty low armor until he levels up that craggy exterior, low attack speed. He's only really good for that burst damage, so that's not going to be too effective. He's doing nice in terms of hiding in the woods. He does have enough mana to pull out the full combo, but there's no rating heroes for him to combo. The unfortunate situation for every Tiny mourns this day. And there's a ward by the Dire scouting out the teleports coming in for the Radiant Tower, but also scouting out River as well. So Radiant doing a nice job, always having a lot of wards up. And meanwhile, I don't see nearly as many wards. There's only this ward up for the Dire, so either Dire are not placing as much emphasis on wards, which I think they could, because they do have Crystal Main and Earthshaker, who are double supports, who don't really need too many items in order to be truly effective. Maybe they want to give Earthshaker a bit more farm. He's going to be able to pick up the Blink Dagger on about 1800 gold, so very far away, but this tower will certainly help him out. Meanwhile, there's tier 2 temps going on the top lane, and Morphling is going to be the only one there to defend. He picked up his Lincoln Sphere in the meanwhile, and the Adaptive Strike just going to do a little bit of burst damage to that bottom, doing next to no damage, about 120. Pretty low this early on. Just going to bottle it up, or rather just pop the Magic Wand, retreat, and they're going to give up a tower. No, nice deny by Nick, showing that he's not only good at last-hitting creeps, he's good at last-hitting towers as well. So nice deny, 705 in favor. And the Dust of Appearance just randomly popped for whatever reason. Not really too sure about that. Does Moonlight Shout, maybe it was a preemptive Dust to cast your Darkseer. No, it was not in range in order to catch him. Moonlight Shout, Dust popped once more. What are these random Dusts? They managed to catch the Invoker. Very unexpected, as Invoker might be in a lot of trouble, but he's so tanky, 1600 HP with the Ultra Orb and the Urn of Shadows, and he does have Quas Regen all the while, so you can just see the spell damage not being relevant whatsoever. Darkseer and Invoker just being really annoying in order to kill. The arrow's just gonna whiff, Sharky barely dodges it in the nick of time. Nick. He's a Morphling player. See what I did there? I'm gonna stop now. So the spell damage is becoming increasingly irrelevant, and that's a big problem. Tiny's all about the spell damage. It's going to really dissuade the Morphling from going for the shotgun build. Meanwhile, it looks like Darkseer going to try to initiate. Fissure gets blocked in. Frostbite going to go down as well. Shadowgrave being popped to save Loda's life. Loda will be able to escape just barely. Poison Touch is going to go hurt the Earthshaker. Going to die. Going to be the first one to fall. Ice picks up that kill. Darkseer is still very low, but he's going to be able to escape. Let's see if they can pick up a kill on Ling. Ling is going to be the next one to fall. No, Tiny comes in from the rear to pick off Loda. Nonetheless, looks like Loda might have overstayed his welcome, but you want to be in the battle as long as possible when you're a Darkseer so you can search away your allies. Black Hole going to be casted just for Nick. He just replicates out. He just goes, Well, what? You have no physical damage and I'm Morphling. I have 1600 HP. But meanwhile, Sharky might be in a little bit of trouble. No, TFG is still there. He still has a Blink Dagger. He still has enough mana to combo. And now, without the Darkseer, Enigma might be in a lot of trouble. Let's see. No, the Dagger is going to be disabled by the Eidolons. So Radiant coming out the victor 2-1. But unfortunately, they did have to use a Black Hole, and Morphling did not die. Meanwhile, only Crystal Maiden and Earthshaker, the two supports, died. Of course, it's going to slow Earthshaker's Blink Dagger rush, but I mean, there's always a bright side. Morphling didn't die, but very, very early Scythe of Vice being picked up by Invoker. And he also has a cloak. This is a really, really tanky Invoker. 1600 HP with some magical damage reduction. And through that cloak, Ernishaw's always keeping him full. Quas getting that HP regen. I'm really liking the adaptation by Zenith in this game, going for very fast. Oh, TFG might be in a little bit of trouble. Early Hex clearly dissuading TFG from pursuing. He's going to do the Avalanche toss combination for Ice. Ice is very low HP. Echo Slam not doing nearly enough damage. And now we just see, okay, Crystal Main, you're going to die. There's not much you can do about it, but Windrunner comes in through the reinforcing mechanism. The Shackle does not latch on anything, so Fissure's going to dissuade. But just talking about the items build for Zenith, I'm really, really liking this Invoker build. Very unconventional way to play Invoker. I mean, you usually like that drums, which is really useful in terms of giving a lot of team bonus. But in this game where you just need to survive, otherwise, I mean, it's good and all having all the team items in the world, but if you're not going to be there to survive for a hero you just put so much of your farm and experience into, then it's not going to be too important whatsoever. And overall, the towers are really making a difference for Zenith. They do have around a 6k gold lead, probably maybe about 6.5k. They have taken 4 towers, and only 1 tower has been denied on the top lane. Meanwhile, MUFC has only taken 1 tower on this top lane. But Morphling is still farming nonetheless. Just checking out the early CS, or not really early, we see 162, 26 minutes in the game. Pretty fast farm. Usually the mark of a very, very farmed Morphling when it's a game where there's not too much action is probably around 200 CS by minute 28. And he's getting pretty close to that, so getting a lot of CS this early on. Meanwhile, the palm gets bursted down in the blink of an eye as Shackle Shot managed to latch on and wait for him to come out with all the nukes, just doing a nice job. Earthshaker 1k gold, and with this tower he's going to get very close to that blink tower there. The tower isn't deny range. Maybe they made a bit of a mistake in terms of not denying this tower. Are they going to start to deny it right now? XY is maneuvering in position, no blink dagger. He has an Ogre Club to go for that BKB, no blink dagger. I'm liking this build. I mean, you don't really need to... I mean, you could let the other team initiate on you, because your heroes are just tanky. So if you can just walk in and pop the black hole, and that's going to be your form of initiation. And against the BKB, like I mentioned earlier, there's nothing that goes through the Enigma BKB black hole. So when he channels it, it's going to be channeled for the full duration, unless Morphling just does a massive amount of physical damage to bring him down. But let's see what Morphlings decide to go for. He's going to eschew. I think it's a shoe, or just skip. Let's just go with skip. He's going to skip the idea of the shotgun build, which is pretty common for Morphlings these days, as HY denies the middle tower, but the bottom tower is still in deny range, so they're just going to leave it up. That tower pretty important in terms of Roshan positioning. I mean, especially since that middle tower is lost, you know, you have a bit of a shorter reinforcement path to go from here to here, rather than just here to here, even though it doesn't look like much. And of course, the ward on this clip won't be able to spot until you're probably around like here. So overall, that tower pretty important, so I understand why they're not denying it. But again, recognizing, okay, if I go with Thero Blade, it's magical damage. What is it going to do? They have Hood, they have an extremely tanky Invoker, who has Scythe Device, they have Mechanism up by Enigma, they have a Pipe Finish on the Darkseer, they have Dazzle with Shadow Grave, Healing Wave, or Shadow Wave and all that jazz. So, just adapting pretty nicely overall in these item builds. And now we just see the Tiny Pick not proving to be too relevant. The Zenith lineup just walks in, takes a free tower. So Zenith, they're looking pretty good. They have the Hex up, they're popping the pipe, they want to go for this tier 3 tower. Is the glyph going to be popped? No, the Nova not going to even break through that pipe of insight. And now the tower's going to go down. Are they going to continue for the racks? Let's see. I mean, he should be able to defend this. 2 towers picked up for Zenith, and pretty good. Already going to give them a pretty big gold advantage, around 2.2k gold just in the span of about a minute and a half. So they're just going to take that, get themselves a lot of map control. Just looking at the creepy equilibrium. Against Morphling, this creepy equilibrium is not too bad. Morphling is one of those heroes can really upset the creep equilibrium. You can see that these two lands pushed extremely far, and But meanwhile, the mid lane just going to give themselves map control, going to give them a lot of wards, and they're doing a nice job in terms of always planting wards on the map, just giving them constant vision, and they have the gold to afford it, so that's another thing. Gem being picked up by Enigma. I'd like the gem to be picked up by the Darkster just because he's pretty tanky by himself. But these racks taking a lot of damage just through the constant barrage of magical damage. Pipe being popped once more. Echo Slam with the Blink Dagger being popped. But look at all these heroes still very high HP. Grave popped a little prematurely. But looks like Mirana picks up immediate kill. Black Hole being channeled on just the Morphling. Can they burst out the Morphling? Enigma picks up the immediate kill. And looks like Zenith Ice is just going to be able to survive, do a lot of physical damage in the background as HY picked up a triple kill. Tiny managed to get a kill by himself, but Black Hole just for the Morphling, they are unafraid to just use Black Hole for one hero, and Tiny's the only sole survivor, so nice team fight, just tanking their way to victory. I've never really seen an Invoker being built like this, and usually when you go for like a tank strat, you don't expect these heroes. Enigma, notoriously known for squishiness. Mirana, pretty squishy hero. Invoker, pretty squishy if he doesn't get a lot of HP, but just beefing up with all these items, and now Mirana gonna have that MKB, already has the MKB, had it in that last engagement, really helped in terms of doing a lot of physical DPS, and of course that weave also helped a lot of matters, and very important is that Dazzle did not die, he picked up a lot of levels, he's gonna get that level 2 weave pretty soon, gonna reduce the armor even more so MUFC, they're in a lot of trouble. How are they gonna make this up? They got the Echo Slam was not perfectly placed, but it did enough damage. It should have done enough damage in order for MUFC to follow that initiation. But I think they realized, okay, we have nothing that goes through Black Hole. Enigma, unfortunately, did die for the Rain side. He's not going to have enough money to pick up that Mithril Hammer into the BKB pretty soon. So let's see how MUFC responds. But fortunately for them, they do have one of the better late game heroes. Although he did die in that last engagement, he's going to be able to pick up his Manta Style pretty soon. When he picks up his Manta Style, he's just going to be all over the place, pushing with his illusions, being with his team with the Replicate, just constantly just being a thorn inside of Zenith. So a nice timing push by Zenith in terms of recognizing, okay, Warwick doesn't have his Manta yet. Let's just push, guys. Might as well. So Nick is just going to try to finish the Manta ASAP. Meanwhile, Rain just going to try to farm up a bit more. Let's just check out the gold graph really fast. We can see that the gold graph about 7.5k. It's only 13-8. Very, very few hero kills. I mean, the games I usually cast, there's like literally 80 hero kills in about 40 minutes with the Mineski and the Pinoy Dota 1 games I cast. But much more tactical game. I'm really liking this game. Just, you can really analyze how these item builds are really doing a nice job in terms of shaping the role and allowing the Zenith side to ride their way to victory, and they realize, okay, we have the advantage, let's push out the other lanes a bit more, try to get some more map positioning for Roshan. We already have the mid lane constantly being pushed. Morphling, of course, only can really push one lane, and we do have a tier 2 tower, although it is pretty low. Gonna be able to defend that for a bit longer. Again, more wards, sentry wards being dropped all over the place. Enigma did die, so he did drop, no, he still has a gem. And he does pick up a Mithril Hammer. Did Enigma not die in that last engagement? I'm not too sure. I think he did actually die. Let's just check out the... Whatever! I'm not going to try to decipher this graph. But yeah, you see the power of having strong map control. Just going to do a nice job in terms of securing themselves an easy Roshan. Meanwhile, all MUFC can do is farm with the Manta Style. They do have Manta Style, but no buyback for the Morphling. And unfortunately, I mean, the team with the Morphling is not going to get the Aegis, even though he does have the Manta Style and massive amount of pushing skills. They're going to just clear some creeps. No, Manta is not going to be pulled out immediately. Sharky taking so much damage through that massive barrage of pure damage through that Sunstrike. Ling is going to be the sacrificial lamb, and with the Ling's death, they're going to be able to pick off this Roshan relatively easily. Black Hole is up, so I think MUFC, they're going to be in a lot of trouble. Black Hole's up, they can't really afford to take this engagement. Morphling doesn't have buyback, so if he dies, they pretty much lose another Rax for sure. So yeah, Zenith going to be able to take its Aegis, and HY just becoming even more beastly than usual. Arrow manages to hit on MUFC Sharky, going to be able to force step himself away. Lava Spawn just doing very, very annoying damage to the Windrunner, lowering her armor, just doing a lot. But it looks like Zenith, they're not really taking advantage of that. Vacuum going to suck in the Tiny just for some more residual damage. Tiny picked up a gem himself, so I think Zenith can just go for the Roshan. They kill the Crystal Main, which isn't really the biggest steal in the world. But, I mean, I think they might have been able to recognize, okay, Morphling just picked up his Manta. Probably doesn't have too much gold. If he dies, he can pretty much go for it. So Zenith playing it cautiously, playing it close to the bone, and it pays off in the end anyways. They pick up the Aegis anyway. So I think, just looking back on it, although I just criticized them, it was the right decision. So again, I am proved wrong by myself, which is always a depressing feeling, knowing that, you're proving yourself wrong. Anyway, Manta almost finished up on Mirana. Now she's going for a bit more tanky. The Manta style illusion is going to give her a lot of additional DPS and give her a lot of additional ways to counteract that wall of illusion being popped immediately. Doing a nice job in terms of isolating, recognizing, okay, all the heroes coming in from this direction, so might as well pop it, force them to come in this direction. If they clump up, Enigma can just go in for a giant black hole, and the vacuum just going to do a nice job. So all these item placements, these wall placements, just pretty useful. You don't really think about things like, alright, wall placement, cutting off the other heroes and funneling them into one area. But they really mean a lot when they add them together, especially as a Darkseer who's probably the master also with Pudge at just disrupting positioning of the team fight, which is very important, which is might be one of the reasons why Darkseer is such a popular pick these days. Meanwhile, this ward, scatting it out. Gem not going to be picked up. Zenith just playing it slow and close to the bone. Morphing's not pushing their top lane at all, even though the tier 2 tower did die. So Morphling is not getting too much farm whatsoever. He's constantly forced to stay with his team. He is level 16, so he doesn't have the rope kit. Well, arrow is popped, pipe is popped as well, so now they're gonna go in. Looks like the Mechanists are doing a nice job in terms of keeping Ling alive. Ling is gonna survive. Meanwhile, Vacuum sucks in 2 heroes, but it looks like Zenith just is content to siege your tower and take it. Just take it, guys. Might as well. So Zenith playing exceptionally well. MUFC clearly feeling the pressure. Mirana picks up the mana style, and I think with the mana style they can go for a push, although Mirana is pretty low in terms of mana. But these arrows have been hitting their mark quite frequently, so Zenith, they're looking in prime position to take this game, although a lot of massive amount of burst damage immediately kills Mirana, and Aegis expires now with the obnoxious Aegis animation, although it's pretty cool, not gonna lie. You can tell that, alright, she's out of the Aegis, she's still surviving. So losing the Aegis is pretty important, but the arrow manages to hit on Nick. Are they gonna initiate? No, they're just dancing around. Oh, this might have been a prime opportunity to initiate. Maybe they realize, okay, BKB's not for Enigma. If we go in too desperately, then Earthshaker's staying back. We'll just blink and get a nice Echo Slam. Pipe being popped on one side, wall being popped on one side. Crystal Main, Nova just doing a lot of damage to the pipe. Shadow Grave being popped on the Darkseer once more as the Tiny Blink did for that one. Shadow's Wave being popped. Black Hole only catching one more, even though Winrar just decides, hey, I want to join the party, and gets into the Black Hole once more. MUFC Link, the Crystal Main dies once more. Sharky gonna take a lot of damage, dies to the Invoker. Meanwhile, that's going to be that engagement. Tiny taking a lot of damage. Let's see, Morphling can do anything whatsoever. Echo Slam being popped for HOHY, but the Racks are dangerously low to dying, and I think they can just siege the Racks. Invoker just doing so much work. Earthshaker is going to be next one to fall. Dazzle taking a lot of damage. Pops this Grave on himself once again. Pops the Poison Touch, disabling the Lincoln Sphere once more. Power Shot, will he get the kill on the Dazzle? Yes, the Grave just dies in the nick of time. Zenith just bulldozing their way to victory, and now MUFC, what can they do to respond to this continuous tanky barrage? MUFC on the back foot. Unfortunately for them, the small consolation prize they can take is, alright, Mirana died and Morphling didn't die. That's pretty much all they can take. They are 2 Rex down. I mean, you do have Morphling who's insanely mobile, who can push a lot of these at once, but still being down by 2 racks and just constantly going lower and lower in terms of hero kills, not picking up too much map control yourselves, and map control is just the key to this game. I mean, once Radiant picks up map control, they can secure themselves in ears of Roshan, and Roshan will just be extremely important. With the Roshan, with the Aegis and the Cheese, Morphling can just be so much more aggressive, but now he just has to play so defensively, and that's really coming to harm Morphling in the long run. He doesn't have any sort of BKB or anything like that, so he's just constantly forced to play passively. He does have another 2.5k gold in the bank. Let's see what item goes for. Is he going to go for the safe Butterfly? I mean, BKB, you already have the Lincoln Sphere, so I think damage is really what you need. I mean, I don't know if you're going to be able to out-tank the Zenith side. I mean, your supports are just not doing enough. Earthshaker getting the right choices in terms of Bracer is going to be able... He's been able to drop the items and the Echo Slams nonetheless, although the Pipe just doing a lot of... work in terms of negating so much of the magical damage. So I'm not really too sure how much Zenith can do. Meanwhile, Sharky just constantly being pestered by the Sunstrike. He picks up an Ultimate Orb. Maybe if Winner picks up Hex and Morphing picks up another tier 3 items, MUFC can mount some sort of push, but meanwhile, this tier 2 tower on the top lane, This Invoker build just wreaking havoc, wreaking havoc all over the place. Still 1 point in the Wexo, Tornado, EMP, not going to be the best combination in the world. Scythe being picked up by Loda, so he's firing quite well. Meanwhile, Dazzle did die in the last engagement, but he does have the drum, so giving his team even more utility. And we just saw, you know, combined with that Mirana and Invoker physical DPS weave, it does work, man. It does a lot of work. Crack Exterior, no level, so we can see that Tiny's armor only 5, so he's extremely squishy against a massive amount of physical damage on this side. And this is why I say Dazzle is just such a good late game support. If you really give him the experience of levels, you won't regret it. I've seen, but he's sort of a very risky support. You don't really want to take a risk with supports, which is why you don't really see him too often in games. So MUFC, how are they going to respond to this? Black Hole is up once more, and now there's a Blink Dagger and a BKB, so Nigga can just jump in and cast that without fear of any sort of Earthshake or Retribution. So how is MUFC going to defend this? Pipe is going to be casted once more, and the Pipe in the wall casted once more. The Echo Slam being dropped, not hitting anybody. Tiny blinks it, does an Avalanche and Toss Weave being casted once more. Tiny taking a lot of damage. Black Hole being cancelled on one, as Crystal Maiden being the first one to fall. TFG dies, buys back, and meanwhile Nick is going to try to go on the offensive. Not going to do too much damage whatsoever. Sharky going to be the next one to fall. Windrunner doing nothing whatsoever. Black Hole being guessed now. Sorry, you saved it just for Nick once again. GG being called by MUFC Net as game 1 being taken by Zenith. Zenith just... That was a really good game, guys. I mean, it wasn't the most exciting game, but I haven't been able to cast a game all about positioning and item decisions like that in a while. And now we just see the power of just correct item positions, what can it do for you. And I think we're seeing the bit more worth for Dazzle. So yeah, really nice play by Zenith, just completely dominating MUFC in a lot of these aspects. So we're gonna go into game 2 very shortly. I hope you all enjoyed that. Thank you all for watching, and please support me, please subscribe, comment, like, all that stuff. Follow me on Facebook and Twitter. If you want to watch my stream, it'll be posted on Twitter most often. Sometimes I'll put it on Facebook and all that jazz. But with that, that's going to be the end of that replay. Let's just pull up the last bit of the hero score screen so you can now take a look at the creep stats and the hero kills. And I can just talk about where I think MUFC might have made some mistakes. There we go. There is the hero screen. So what did MUFC do wrong? I can't really pick up too many things. Maybe they got a little bit outpicked. I think the tiny pick just did not work out because we just saw Zenith make so many smart item decisions. I think I've just been ranting on it. I mean, I must sound like a Zenith fanboy. And yeah, I'm a fan of Loda, I'm a fan of HY. But yeah, I'm a fan of MUFC as well. They've been very stable, very consistent. Got pretty high in a lot of Dota 1 tournaments, and they've been doing quite well in Dota 2 as well. So they certainly have the capabilities, but this tiny pick just did not work out whatsoever. And I think that just really came back to bite MUFC in the ass. Like I say with Invoker, if you give so much experience and so much gold to a hero, you really need to make it worth it, either by getting a lot of kills or getting a lot of items. And unfortunately for MUFC, Tiny was unable to do either of those things. So beautifully played by Zenith, and hopefully MUFC can recover from this. But keep in mind, Zenith was invited to the International, so they're clearly one of the top Southeast Asian teams. They are extremely highly ranked, number 2 at this point in the game in GG Net's current ranking system, Navi number 1, CLG number 3. Of course, you can't put too much stock in that, but you can see that they've been extremely solid. So Zenith just doing a lot of work. I don't know if they're sponsored by anything or Zenith is just a clan name or clan tag. But yeah, I think HY after those literally months of instability with the MYM and all that jazz, he's finally picked up a team that he can be proud of. So good news for him. Let's see how MUFC responds in game 2. So thank you all for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this game and have a fantastic night.